Nah.
Ah, nah? What the hell was that?
Alright, so I made a video a while back boldly claiming that Persona 5 would be coming to the Nintendo Switch for a variety of different reasons, but ultimately what it all came down to was that with all the evidence supporting the claim, Atlus would have had to have been absolute morons to not come out and put the rumors to bed as soon as possible. Obviously, the internet's always going to speculate, so it'd be a complete waste of time for companies to dispel every rumor based on what color chairs might have been in certain videos. But if you're going to specifically ask fans if they want to see the Persona series on Nintendo platforms and expect people not to be disappointed when Persona 5S on the Switch turns out to be a spin-off, then somebody needs to send Atlus' CEO, Johnny Atlus, to one of those Scared Straight programs to set him back on the right path. However, despite all the ridicule I got for suggesting that Persona 5 would be coming to the Nintendo Switch, Atlus' communication manager, Perry Saturn, recently told fans not to give up hope and to keep fighting for it by letting Atlus know that they want it, which fans have certainly made clear in another recent survey that the company conducted. And if you ask my festively plump rump, I think that damn near confirms that a Switch version really is happening. So sit back in your stepdad's most comfortable chair, pour yourself a tall glass of powdered water, press the subscribe button if you haven't already, and allow me, the world's least offensive bull jockey, Cameron all one word, to tell you why I still think Persona 5 will break free and come to the Nintendo Switch. Alright, so like I said, I know internet speculation can get out of hand from time to time, and I'm sure there's already people roasting me in the comments and saying I'm just jumping to conclusions. But all I know is that if an Atlus representative's gonna tell fans to keep fighting for something that's not even possible, then that person ought to be fired, and if it really isn't possible, then it makes absolutely no sense to even bring it up in a survey, let alone multiple surveys. And not only that, but it'd be absolutely ridiculous for Atlus to not just flat out say that it's not gonna happen as soon as possible. However, if Persona 5 is coming to the Nintendo Switch though, then it definitely makes sense not to tell everyone about it right away, especially with the North American release of Persona 5 Royal being right around the corner for the PS4. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who prefer to own it on the Switch, but if you want as many people to buy the PS4 version as possible, then it'd be pretty stupid to announce a Switch port if it's not even coming out anywhere in the near future. And I'd imagine that with Persona 5 being a long-time exclusive to Sony, that it'll probably be a little while longer before that happens. Originally, I thought that Joker being in Smash meant that a Persona 5 Switch port was right around the corner, because seeing as I was also on the PS3, I didn't think it could be that difficult to copy and paste it over. But with Persona 5 The Royal being a PS4 exclusive that better utilizes the hardware, I realized that a Switch version would probably take a little more time and effort. I mean, I guess they could just put the standard version of Persona 5 on the Switch, but at this point, that version's pretty much obsolete, and without the extra story elements, it's pretty much incomplete. I mean, if you want to be cynical about it, you could even argue that it's a glorified beta version. And if you ask me, I think it's kind of weird that North America's getting scrambled before the Royal when it's pretty much a sequel, but that's a topic for another video that I'm never gonna make. But the bottom line is that if Persona 5 does come to the Switch, then it really does need to be the Royal version, and along with the extra work it'd take for Atlus to get it running on the Switch, there's also the fact that Sony probably had exclusivity locked down ahead of time, most likely before Joker being in Smash was even discussed. However, just because the Persona series has always been exclusive to Sony in the past, it doesn't mean it always has to be. I mean, just look at pretty much all the third-party exclusives in history. A Final Fantasy game being on anything but a Nintendo console used to be unheard of, but as soon as Square realized that the PlayStation would be better, they jumped ship without a second thought. Because at the end of the day, third-party developers want to make as much money as possible, which is absolutely the right mentality for them to have. I mean, it made sense for Personas 1 through 4 to be exclusive to Sony since the PS1 and 2 were the perfect consoles for RPGs at the time, but in 2020, when pretty much everything on the Switch sells out the ass, remaining exclusive to Sony isn't the smartest way to make as much money as possible anymore. Obviously, the PS4 is a huge install base, so if you're going to be exclusive to somebody, then the PS4 probably is the best place for most games. But the thing is, third-party franchises really don't need to be exclusive anymore, and it seems like the Persona series is the last franchise that hasn't officially made the jump yet. And if there was some kind of contract or something in place that said that the Persona series can never leave Sony, then the Atlus representative should have immediately shot the question of a Switch port down, just like how Nintendo would shoot the possibility of Mario games being on PlayStation down if anybody ever asked about it. But the fact that Atlus didn't confirm Persona 5 on the Switch probably means that they can't, but even if they could, it'd have been stupid to do so anyway, because it'd be the same thing as telling non-Japanese fans to skip the PS4 version of Royal, which would mean less money for everybody involved. And besides, if fans want something so badly and you know you're not going to deliver it anytime in the immediate future, then it's smart to encourage them to ask for it more, even if it's already been confirmed internally, because that only makes them want it that much more in the end, which will of course lead to more hype and sales. I mean, it's kind of like how fans of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure have been fiending for the confirmation of an anime adaptation for Part 6 ever since the 5th part ended. Given how successful the first 5 parts are, I'd bet absolutely anything that it's coming since it'd be moronic not to deliver it. However, by not confirming it right away, it only makes fans want it that much more just because there's a possibility that it might not happen. And as we all know, not having something only makes you want it that much more. I mean, just look at Resident Evil 1.5. In case you don't know, that game was originally supposed to be Resident Evil 2, and it was almost finished when Capcom decided to scrap it and start over from the beginning. I'm pretty sure the game we ended up getting was probably a lot better, but for some reason, just knowing there's essentially a Resident Evil game on the PS1 that we're never gonna get to play in its entirety only makes us want it that much more. And if Nintendo Switch owners feel something similar about Persona 5, then it can only make them want it that much more than if it were just casually confirmed. Plus, by waiting for the hype of the PS4 version of Royal to run its course, there's probably going to be people like my punk ass who buy both versions. And as we all know, Atlus likes to milk their games as much as possible, so if Persona 5 is coming to the Switch, then the smartest thing to do would be exactly what they did. And what they did was not flat out deny a Switch version since it'd kill the hype dead in its tracks, but they also let fans believe that it's not a guarantee either. I'm not saying that a port's all wrapped up and ready to go or anything like that, and if the Switch version of Persona 5 Scramble sells poorly, then Atlus is probably gonna think twice before bringing the main game over. After all, if there's nothing to gain from it, I'm sure they'd rather avoid ruffling Sony's feathers if at all possible. But I think just knowing that Atlus is even considering the port's really all we need to know as far as confirmation's concerned, because it just proves that there's nothing tying the franchise down to Sony, which should have already been made obvious with the Persona Q games. And if Atlus is even thinking about it, then I can't imagine that they'd come to the conclusion that it'd be a bad idea since it'd be leaving way too much money on the table not to. Especially when you consider the overwhelming results from all the fan surveys Atlus conducted demanding that the Persona series come to Nintendo's little hybrid that could. I'd imagine that Joker being in Smash has a lot to do with why the interest is so high with an entirely new fan base, but the bottom line is that if Atlus had no plans of making this a reality, then why would they even bother asking in the first place? Especially since they seem to be a little bit more than friends with Nintendo as of late. And even if Persona 5 Royal's too graphically demanding to bring to the Switch, which I'm sure it's not if you look at what Bethesda's pulled off, then I'd definitely expect to see it on a Nintendo Switch Pro or whatever Nintendo's next console ends up being. Or at the absolute least, I'd expect to see Personas 3 and 4 get their own physical releases or show up on the eShop, because I honestly believe that they'd sell millions of copies, specifically for Persona 4 Golden, seeing as how there were only so many people who could play it on the Vita. But anyway, what do you think about the Persona series coming to the Switch, though? Do you think it's only a matter of time before we see it, or does Atlus need to fire their communications manager? Because if you ask me, those really are the only two choices here. Either way, let me know what you think by voting in the upper right-hand corner, and of course by commenting down below, and as always, I'll try my goddamnedest to respond to everybody. But let me tell you, if there's two people who Atlus needs to port over to the Nintendo Switch, then it would definitely be today's patrons of the day, Angel Duster and Buffalo from Utah. If you want to be badasses like these two, then consider supporting FU Game Crew on Patreon for loot boxes in the mail and other wacky rewards. And if you want to make a cameo, then send pictures or videos of you rocking any FU Game Crew merch like these legendary human beings you see before you. As always, like and share this video anywhere on the internet to help this channel grow. And if you want to prove that you're not down with registered sex offenders, then go ahead and press the subscribe button if you haven't already. My name's Cameron, all one word, and I'll be back with more videos soon.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.